Listen, 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 more often to things than to beings. 'Tis the ancestors' breath when the fire's voice is heard. In the voice of the waters are. Those who have died have never left. The dead are not under the earth. They are in the rustling trees. They are in the fields. They are in the crying grass. They are in the moaning rocks. The dead are not under the earth. So listen more often to them than beings. Listen more often to them than to beings. To use the ancestors' breath when the fire's voice is heard. 'Tis the ancestors' breath in the voice of the waters. Those who have died have never left. The dead are not packed with the living. They are with the Susan's breast. They are in the wailing child. They are with us in our homes. They are with us in this crowd. The dead are not packed with the living. So listen more often to things than to beings. Oh, listen more often to things than to beings. It is the ancestors' breath when the fire's voice is heard. It is the ancestors' breath in the voice of the waters. Oh. When the fire's voice is heard, to the ancestors' breath in the voice of the waters.
Good morning. And whether you're online or in person, welcome to the service of the First Unitarian Church of Hamilton this morning on this day before Halloween. we begin with our land acknowledgement. The city of Hamilton is situated upon the traditional territories of the Erie, Neutral, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Mississaugas. This land is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, which was an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe to share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. As settlers, we continue to benefit from the land and its resources. As settlers, we must ask ourselves how or if we have shared and cared for the earth and its gifts. Facing the truth is hard, but truth must come before reconciliation. My name is Tim Versteeg. I'm the religious educator here at the church, and this morning I will be your service leader. I am not a Viking, even though I'm dressed as one. I would like to thank our service team this morning, which includes Reverend Jamie Boyce, our interim minister, DJ Moons and Joanne Deere, who are our music ministers, our tech team, Josh McIntyre, Mary Ann Forbes, and John Elliott, and our ushers, Angela Morgan and Pete Morgan. Thanks to all those folks who make this possible, as well as thanks to our two youth ambassadors, Nicola O'Shea and Myas Lori Joyce, who are with us this morning and will be helping hand out shakers and make sure people can get stuff off the carts if they need it. If you feel like coloring, we have some lovely Halloween coloring sheets up there for the young and old, and there are some clipboards that you can use, and crayons and pencil crayons, whatever you would like to do. If you're just feeling fidgety, there's fidget stuff up there, and it's right at the front, our new cart from CYRE, and please avail yourselves of it, whether you are a young person or older person. I would also like to remind everybody that, folks at home we can't hear because they're muted, but we do ask you to turn off any cell phones or other devices that might beep or whir or make other noises in the middle of, sometimes that they might not be as welcome as others during our service. So this is going to be a fun service, and, we're going to have lots of shakers and stuff. So if you could time it right with your cell phones today, it would be fine. Okay, so our welcome this morning. Welcome to all manners of creatures. No matter who or what, you are welcome here. Let's be clear. Here we welcome goblins and ghouls, saints and sinners, angels and devils, zombies and werewolves, vampires and witches. We welcome princesses and princes, paupers and farmhands, aliens and astronauts, robots and cyborgs, firefighters and police officers, nurses and doctors, cowfolk of all varieties. We welcome Superman, Wonder Woman, Black Panther, Batman, Spider-Man, Black Widow, and Thor. We welcome both superheroes and superstars. In short, we welcome people, monsters, and all manner of creatures. Here we welcome you and all of who and what you are. Welcome. Let us begin. I would like to invite my daughter Petra Versteeg up to help me light the chalices and lead us in our CYRE chalice lighting words that we do every week in the back, which have some actions. So we're going to do the CYRE one, but let's bring it out here. We're going to speak really loud so you can hear us, because it's got actions. We light this chalice to celebrate Unitarian Universalism. This is a church of open minds, loving hearts, and helping hands. Together we care for our work and work together for peace and friendship in our world. Thanks, Patrick. And we will say our unison words of chalice lighting as well. May this flame be our light of friendship and love. Our first hymn is number 361, which we have started to use in our family worships. Stay tuned next week. If you're in here, we're going to have our family worship in the back. partway through, so all the kids and families are welcome to come back to Fellowship Hall and have a more kinetic kind of service, if you like. But we have started to use the Enter, Rejoice, and Come In as our opening hymn in those days, and Joanne's going to lead us with us for it.
Shall we rise?
Rise as you are able or willing. And I'd like to ask Mary Eve to come up and give us our Canvas messaging. And I believe, are you going to read Kelly's, or is Kelly going to read her own? Okay. Cool.
Okay. Well, Tim, you are in fine form this morning. Good morning, everybody. After 2 virtual online Canvas campaigns, it has been a wonderful experience to be able to conduct an in-person Canvas campaign this year. We have celebrated our love for our spiritual home. We have celebrated the love that has come through our hearts and our hands. Are you tired of seeing me yet? Oh, well, now that Halloween is upon us, I have to promise you that I will stop haunting you every Sunday about pledging after today. We now have 82 tags on our results display, and that represents about close to $235,000, which is 81% of our goal of $290,000. So we're not quite there yet. However, I do want to say that every pledge that we've received and any future pledges, no matter the size, are vital to the operating budget for 2023. So thank you to everybody who has pledged. Thank you to those of you who have responded saying that you're unable to make a pledge. We're happy to hear from everybody. So beginning this week, our calling team is going to be making follow-up emails and phone calls if we haven't heard from you, just so that we can close the campaign in the next week or two. So, and then after that, we'll be able to announce the final totals. So it's not too late. You can still pledge online. There are a couple of clipboards with pledge forms over in the seating area. If you want to do that, we can submit the pledge on your behalf if you just enter the information on the form. So easy as anything. And the other thing is thank you. Thank you for all the ways that you support our church community. Thank you for everything that you do through your hearts and through your hands. It has been a real pleasure. Thank you. And now I would like to introduce Kelly Wolf. She's going to be the last of our testimonials during the Canvas time. She's a long-term member, has been involved in our church, as has her children, So I introduce Kelly Wolf to say a few words today.
Good morning. I came to this congregation when my children were small. I was looking for a community where we could raise our children, a place where they could learn and question at the same time, a place to build a foundation of their own personal values. They've since stopped attending, but I'm still here, and I have found a community for myself along the way. As a theater artist, I haven't always been able to support the congregation financially, but what I do have is my skill and my time. And in the early days, this was how I contributed to the life of the congregation. And this offered me an opportunity to use both my hands and my heart to become an active member. Because I had young children, I started by volunteering with the CYRE, as well as being on the CYRE committee. And later I volunteered for aesthetics and coordinated the art exhibits in the foyer. I also worked with the Fall Festival Committee, and I volunteered with children at Eva Rothwell and the garden, and I've held the seat on the board, and now I am currently the co-chair of the Social Justice Hub. And the path to my work in the congregation, in our community, all fits into place. I originally saw my time as a way to contribute to the congregation when I was not able to support financially. And I realize now that all the learning I gained through these opportunities has built my character to this point. And it makes sense looking back over all my UU experiences that I've been building my leadership skills here in the safety of my community. And so now I can share this with our larger community of Hamilton. And I'm confidently able to take an active stance in our city and work toward a more just society. And so with my hands, I bring the heart of my religious community out into the community. I also really appreciate that the theater I create with my company, Open Heart, has been supported by the members of this congregation. And it's how I put our shared Unitarian Universalist values into action. After spending most of my life as a contract-based artist, I actually now have a regular job at McMaster. And that affords me the ability to contribute financially more regularly to the congregation. And while I am now able to use my heart, maybe a little bit more than my hands these days in the work of the congregation, what I've gained through my experiences here surpasses any of my offerings. Thank you.
Now is the time for the story for all ages. Yeah. Thank you. Today we have a story that comes from a song that Pete Seeger adapted from a South African folktale many, many years ago, and it is called Abby Yo-Yo. And the illustrations are by Michael Hayes. Once upon a time, there was a little boy who played the ukulele. Around the town he'd go clink, 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 clunk, 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 and the grown-ups would say, "Take that thing out of here." Not only that, the boy's father got in trouble. The boy's father was a magician. He had a magic wand, he'd go zoop, zoop, and make things disappear. But he played too many tricks on people. He'd come up to someone about to drink a nice cool glass of something, zoop, the glass disappears. Someone doing a hard job of work, zit, 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 up comes the father with his magic wand, zoop, no saw. He'd come up to someone about to sit down after a hard day's work, zoop, no chair. People said to the father, "You get out of here. Take your magic wand and your tricks and you and your son just get." The boy and his father were ostracized. That means they made him live on the edge of town. Now in this town, they used to tell stories. The old people used to tell stories about the giants that lived in the old days. And they used to tell a story about a giant called Abby Yo-Yo. They said he was tall as a tree and could eat people up. Of course, nobody believed the story, but they told it anyway. But one day, the sun rose blood red over the hills. And the first people got up and looked out the window, and they saw a great big shadow in front of the sun. They could feel the whole ground shake. Women screamed, strong men fainted. Run for your lives! Abiyoyo's coming! He came to a sheep pasture. Whoop! He grabs a whole sheep. He comes to the cow pasture. He grabs a whole cow. Yump! Men yelled, grab your most precious possessions and run! Run! Just then, the boy and his father woke up. Hey, Pa, what's coming over the fields? Why, son, that's Yabiyoyo. If only I could get him to lie down, I could make him disappear. The boy said, come with me, father. He grabbed his father by one hand. The father gets the magic wand, and the boy gets his ukulele. Then they run across the fields. People yelled, don't go near him. He'll eat you alive. There was Abiyoyo. He had long fingernails because he never cut them. He had slobbery teeth because he didn't brush them. Stinking feet because he didn't wash them. And matted hair because he didn't comb it. He raised up his claws, and just then the boy whipped out his ukulele. Abiyoyo, 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 yo-yo, yo-yo. Well, you know, the giant had never heard a song about himself before, and a foolish grin spread over his face, and the giant started to dance. Abiyoyo, Abiyoyo. The boy went faster. Abiyoyo, 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 The giant got out of breath. He staggered. He fell down flat on the ground. Up steps the father. Zoop! Zoop! People looked out their windows. He's gone! Abiyoyo's disappeared! The people ran across the fields. They lifted the boy and his father up on their shoulders. They said, come back to town. Bring your darn ukulele. We don't care anymore. And they all sang, Abiyoyo, 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 yo-yo, Abiyoyo, yo-yo. That is our story for today. All right.
Good morning. Halloween is such great fun, isn't it? My name is Jamie. My pronouns are she, her, and I have the great privilege of serving this congregation as its interim minister. Today, I am also the great and fiery force within, in case you were wondering. That is also hymn number 27, but I'll come back to that in a bit. But I did appreciate that, I think Petra thought I was Elton John, and I thought, well, sometimes I really am at home listening to the greatest hits of Elton John, so next year. Let's breathe. Let's discover ourselves held in this space. Drop into a time of quiet reflection as we prepare to light the candles of joy and sorrow, to light the room with mystery. Perhaps notice your breath. Feel your heartbeat. Allow the mystery of the quiet to be with us. Invite it close. Spirit of life, spirit of love, we gather today to celebrate and play in the mystery of our lives, to discover and rediscover our sense of wonder and awe, that crucial and essential part of our being. We arrive here today to find delight and joy as we notice the turning of the seasons, notice the cold chill of winter, and feel the stings of loss in our lives. Joy, laughter, and wonder are here with us too. May our hearts be opened gleefully today. May the warmth of community we discover soothe achy hearts, and may the laughter of children return us to wonder. As we rise to light the candles of our community, I invite you to creep, tiptoe, or dance your way to the altar, bringing the tenderness of your heart and a smile and a warmth of spirit as we light the candles of our community.
Our prelude this morning, Breaths, which was written by Issei Barnwell and performed in this morning's video by Glenn Thomas Rideout, reminds us that our ancestors are never really gone. On Halloween, poised as it is, when the days shorten and winter approaches, they truly seem to be, as the song says, in the rustling trees and the groaning woods, the crying grass and the moaning rocks. I recently came across a concept that is shared by very disparate sources that altered the way I think about the past and the future, and centers our ancestors in our present lives. And I think it's a theme that's entirely appropriate for the celebration of Halloween. In Hebrew tradition, the past is in front of, and the future is behind. The Hebrews faced the future backwards. Whilst moving forwards in time, their eyes were focused not on what was to be, but on what has already been. Now, half a world away in a cultural chasm, the indigenous Polynesian people of Aotearoa, New Zealand, the Maori, refer to kamua kamuri, a whakataka, or proverb that means walking backwards into the future, a cultural belief that we should look to the past to inform the future. It's also called ki whakatomore te hare whakamua. I walk backwards into the future with my eyes fixed on the past. We all walk backwards into the future, carrying our past with us, in memories, in dreams, in our bodies, in our very DNA. Our ancestors are still here, inside us and around us.
As we look to the future, let us receive the gifts of the congregation. Your gifts today serve the ministries of this congregation here, and our programs, our services, our ministries among us, our caring for each other, but also feed our work out into the world, as you heard from Kelly. I invite you to give generously and joyfully today. Let us receive the offering. We offer our gratitude for your gifts today. Thank you.
This morning, we're going to give you an opportunity in a few minutes to share some of the memories of your ancestors with each other. Before we do that, though, Reverend Jamie and I will be sharing a couple of our own. I've called mine gifts from my mother. Though she's been gone for 20 plus years, my mom still visits me in my dreams sometimes. In that strange twilight consciousness, she is often younger than I am now, and I am sometimes a child, sometimes my waking age. She will occasionally interact in my dreams with the grandchildren she never knew, and sometimes she gives me advice on how to parent, emphasizing what's important and what's not. Growing up, I used to think I was most like my father and fell into the trap of idolizing and lionizing the gender role model in my home. But now that I'm older and have the perspective of time and memory, I realize it's my mom whose gifts I remember and use every day. She was an incredibly practical person who valued common sense and useful skills. During her career as a primary teacher of grade 1 and 2, she was well loved by her students, having first taught in New Zealand in the late 1950s, then returning to teaching once all 3 of her own children were school age in the 1970s in a school in rural Muskoka. Then, finally, for a decade in the late 80s and early 90s in federal schools and Indigenous communities in northern Manitoba. Her love of children and her sense of wonder when interacting with them defined her. She loved her children unconditionally and without judgment. You could tell Mom anything and know she'd still love you, and better yet, she wouldn't tell Dad. She sewed our clothes when we were small. She knitted sweaters and hats and mittens for us well into our adult lives. And when she retired from teaching, she took a job at Fabricland in Bracebridge, and each fall would create elaborate costumes for my 2 nephews, pirates and M&Ms and Casper the Friendly Ghost. When I was going through our Halloween costume box for today, I found pieces of these costumes still in that box. Were it not for my mom, I would not have chosen to stay at home with my kids when they were little. I wouldn't have looked after a couple of dozens of my friends' children after school over the years, and I wouldn't be working here today with our children and youth. For her, the most interesting people in the room were always the youngest ones. It's the same for me. We're going to sing a song together. Joanne, if you want to join us up here. This is for all of you. The words will be projected. The night of October 31st, tomorrow night, has traditionally been a time when the spirits visit us. A time in the year in Celtic tradition when the veil between this world and the other world is at its thinnest. When fairy folk rode in this world, and when I say fairy folk, I'm not talking about tiny things with wings. Think more of elves in Lord of the Rings or other sort of more monstrous creatures. In many parts of England, children and the poor would go door to door seeking a treat of a bit of fruit or soul cake. Some of you might remember we made soul cakes last year and handed them out in the garden afterwards. But instead of saying trick or treat, they'd sing the souling song, and that's the song we're going to learn this morning. The words will be projected as DJ plays it. I'll attempt to lead the singing with Joanne's help, thankfully, who will join me on the choruses. And if you think the song sounds a little bit familiar, you're probably a fan of Sting. For some reason, he recorded a version of it on a Christmas album a few years ago, though its origins are really with Samhain and Halloween. Okay, whenever you're ready, DJ. soul cake, please, good missus, a soul cake. An apple, a pear, a plum, or a cherry, any good thing to make us merry. 1 for Peter, 2 for Paul, 3 for him that made us all. God bless the master of this house, and the mistress also, and all the little children that around your table grow. Likewise your men and maidens, your cattle and your store, and all that dwell within your gates, we wish you 10 times more. A soul cake, please, good miss, a soul cake. An apple, a pear, a plum, or a cherry, any good thing to make us all merry. 1 for Peter, 2 for Paul, 3 for him that made us all. The lanes are very dirty and my shoes are very thin. I've got a little pocket I can put a penny in. If you haven't got a penny, a halfpenny will do. If you haven't got a halfpenny, God bless you. A soul cake, please, good missus, a soul cake. An apple, a plum, or a cherry, any good thing to make us all merry. 1 for Peter, 1 for Paul, 3 for him that made us all.
Every Halloween, when the veil between worlds is thin, and we allow ourselves to dwell and play in the mystery of life, flirt mischiefully with our hopes and fears, I think fondly of my grandmother. I feel her proud Irish Catholic presence tapping me on the shoulder. I smell the faint scent of Pall Malls echoing in the crunch of fallen leaves. And I know she is with me, reaching out, reminding me of the expanse and stretch of love. The Celtic holiday of Samhain marks the end of summer and is most focused on the theme of transformation, the change of seasons, the change in the ground, the shifting light, and the entrance into a time of hibernation and regeneration as winter slowly arrives with its cold grip. Fires are lit, celebrations ensue, and the turning of the calendar towards the new year, welcomed in liminality and the suspension of time between the worlds, is noticed. It's a time to revel in the mystery of life and death, to hear our ancestors and to mock the arrogance of endings. Searching for a costume this year, and I have to say I'm not terribly good at this. Over the years, I've struggled greatly to find the right Halloween costume, and this year was no different. And luckily, over the weekend, I had a conversation with our president, Barb Wallace, who told the story of how she once was the fire of commitment. And I thought, oh goodness, that's good. And then, by luck, as I was just kind of flipping through our hymnal, I fell upon this beautiful hymn that I'm not sure I've actually sung in service. It's hymn number 27 in our gray hymnal, and it's called, "I Am the Great and Fiery Force." Oh goodness, this is good too. And it goes like this, and I'll save you from my own singing voice, and here are the lyrics. I am that great and fiery force, sparkling in everything that lives, In the shining of the river's course, in greening grass that glory gives, I shine in glitter on the seas, in burning sun, in moon and stars. In unseen wind, in the verdant trees, I breathe within both near and far. And where I breathe, there is no death, and meadows glow with beauty's rife. I am in all the Spirit's breath, the thundered word, for I am life.
Sparkling in everything that lives, in shining of the river's course, in greening grass that glory gives. I shine in glitter on the seas, in burning sun, in moon and stars, in unseen wind, in verdant trees. I breathe within, both near and far. And where I breathe, there is no death, and meadows glow with beauty's rife. I am in all the Spirit's breath, the thundered word, for I am life.
Why don't we sing this song more? It is beautiful. The words of this hymn are inspired by the German Christian mystic Hildegard of Bingen, who lived between 1098 and 1179, quite a long time ago. And it turns out she was quite sick as a small child, afflicted with headaches and visions. Perhaps this accounts for her longing to discover life in the ashes of suffering. Perhaps she was too keenly aware of her own fragility, and perhaps this led her to her theology of greenness, her belief that the divine is present and active in the forces of nature and among us in the natural world. It's quite a bold statement for a woman of the Middle Ages. We hear this echoing in the songbook, and we're invited to witness the world with her in the balance of life and death, to discover ourselves in the mysterious matrix of this mystery. And I have to wonder if Grandma Boyce felt her grandmother tap her on the shoulder, call to her across the ocean, whisper in her ear, and tell her that she was marvelous and brave. I wonder if the ancient Celtic traditions tickled her just beneath the surface of her awareness. And maybe, while perched on her North Side Chicago apartment stoop on All Hallows Eve, she felt the call of her ancestors and remembered the fires burning, the revelry, the songs, and the family left behind. Let us celebrate the turning of the seasons. Let us play with the mystery of life. Let us dance and be reminded that we are each a great and fiery force bursting forth, shining, surviving, and living in the great mystery of life. May it be so.
So now it's your turn. So if you can gather with some folks around you in groups of, 4, maybe 5, and I'd like each of you to share some sort of memory, gift, remembrance of an ancestor that you hold dear with each other. And We'll reconvene in about 5 minutes, and DJ will play us some background music while we're doing it.
Excellent.
Yeah. I can't remember.